Hello and welcome, everyone. I am John O'Brien from the Keystone Contractors Association. Um, Welcome. I hope you're enjoying your day, kicking off your day with us. Thanks for being with us. I'm excited to announce we have a great program for today. The Alliant Group, based in Houston, Texas, is going to talk to Pennsylvania contractors about tax credits and incentives for contractors. A very important topic as we continue to move out of the pandemic and get back to pre-March 2020 life. I don't like saying getting back to normal, that sounds weird, but back to pre-March 2020. And I'm thrilled and excited to announce our presenter today, Brian Allmiller from the Alliant Group. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, John. No, thanks for having us today.
You bet. And a special thanks to Jennifer Groff from the Alliant Group for lining this up. I know people didn't log on this morning to hear me talk. So, Brian, you want to take it away? Maybe say a few words about yourself first, just to kind of set the base.
No, absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for taking a few minutes. I know it's the beginning of your day. I do want to be clear, as I mentioned to John, sometimes with webinars, and just my personal thing is that they can drag on and there's so much information, it's information overload. So just know that really want to be respectful of your day today. Probably 15, 20 minutes here. Certainly open to answer any questions that you have. And if you have them, please go ahead and type away in the chat box. I'll try to weave it into the conversation. My name is Brian Allmiller, as John mentioned. I'm a managing director here at Alliant Group. I have Jennifer Groff here, and we're colleagues, and we work with contractors across the country with some niche credits and incentives that we're really excited to share some of them, or one of them in particular, with you today. There's a lot of misinformation out there as it relates to some of these credits. Fortunately, as we always call it, through education and awareness here, and just like today, is through education and awareness, we are able to help so many small businesses take these tax credits and invest them back in the business. That's really the goal today, is to understand we're talking about tax credits. So these are dollars that are sitting in Washington. The hope by Congress and the intent here is that they get from Washington back to local, so you can invest back in your business. So real quick on Alliant Group. We've now delivered $13 billion in government incentives to our clients. We've served as we talk a little bit about these studies and this credit incentive here, we've worked on over 60,000 of them overall. So really, really happy. The credits we work on are typically about job creation, investing back in the business. And so, as it relates, we believe that we've delivered over 215,000 jobs to the U.S. economy through this, and you'll see how this plays out here with this credit today. In terms of our firm, and I just want to take a couple minutes because this is really important as we get to the credits and incentives. It's important to understand very much where the intent of the credits, what Congress intent was for small businesses. And it's important to understand how we built our practice to serve small firms and companies. So in terms of, I'm sorry here, I'm switching between screens, so I apologize. So we've built a strategic advisory board here, and and one of the common denominators of all these people here, because even though some of them are political figures, some work for Congress, others are just business people in the area, and that's the common denominator, is our people have a unique desire to help small businesses and this passion for small businesses. Almost everyone on our strategic advisory board came from families, and whether it be parents or whether it be grandparents that have started and worked in small businesses. And so, Tom Ridge, who from Pennsylvania, has been our strategic advisory board for years, been very instrumental in helping Pennsylvania businesses be able to capture these credits and incentives. As we built out, the couple people to know on this is we have the enforcement side and the legislative side, and it's really important to understand these two. Is We have Mark Everson, who's the former IRS commissioner, ran the IRS from 03 to 07. We have Steve and Kathy and Eric, who you see here. And all of them, Steve was the IRS commissioner. I'm sorry, Steve was the acting IRS commissioner. And you have Kathy and Eric. The three of them are 28, 31, and I think 33 years IRS experience. And the reason we point that out is because these credits and incentives are out there, but we want to understand, from a legal standpoint, how are they supposed to be put together? How does it qualify? Make sure we're taking a conservative approach and making sure from a quality standpoint, what we deliver to you as a client or a potential client is not only the numbers, right? Because that's one piece of these credits. What's the number? What is my credit? You're all going to want to know this today. But the other part of it is to be able to substantiate and validate and say, here's the tax code. Here's how it's married to the tax code. How did we get to this number? And here's the support behind it. So that's one piece of it. The other is that we've got the legislative side. We have Dean Zerby and Don Levy. Both of them are former senior counsel, Senate Finance Committee. Dean worked with Senator Grassley. I'm sure you see his name in the news. And Don worked with Senator Baucus, who has since retired. But they have been involved in the most of the biggest piece of tax legislation over the last 20 years. And so the intent is really important. What was the intent of Congress, in this credit? We're going to talk a little bit about the employee retention credit today. And this is where it's really important to understand kind of where this came from. So for those of you, most people, it's interesting when we're on in these forums, or if I'm doing something, a live speaking engagement, if you ask everyone, hey, do you know anything about PPP, right? There's virtually not a hand in the room that has not heard, been through round one, through round two, knows a lot about it. And then you have the employee retention credit. And if you ask the same group of people, and I can't only do this figuratively with you all, but if you ask the same group of people about the employee retention credit, it's no one looked at it. I heard you needed a revenue drop, or we don't qualify, or hey, it's not for me. A lot of self-censoring out there. And what we're finding is 60-70% of companies are qualifying for the ERC, yet less than 10% are even looking at this and think they do. So it's a great opportunity for American businesses. It's also a little scary, but we wanted to get this information out to you and how it affects contractors. So the employee retention credit, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to go through it again. We're going to take 15-20 minutes here. But I want to share with you a little bit of the history of this because it's really important to where it is today. So the employee retention credit is a credit that is against payroll taxes, right? It's your payroll taxes that you pay every quarter. They are due by the end of the month following the quarter, and you probably pay a fair amount, tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in payroll tax. The important thing about this employee retention credit and the payroll tax is that whether your business is profitable or not, so it's irrelevant as long as you have people paying employment tax, okay? So big step here. So these credits, and I just want to be clear here, we'll tell you a little bit about our process at the end, but this is not a situation where companies are walking away with $5,000 or $10,000, okay? I just want to give you some perspective there and hopefully some excitement. These are credits that can add up very quickly. Now, we're not going to go say you're going to get millions of dollars, but I just want to give you kind of put in your mind, like, this is not an exercise. You're not on this webinar because, hey, let's look at $5,000 or $10,000. Not that that wouldn't be helpful, but I just want to give you the sense of the magnitude, the potential magnitude here. So you have the employee retention. This is part of the CARES Act, right? And it was last year, in 2020 where it started. Now this is the important part. There's a lot of bullet points here. My goal today is to talk through and read bullet points to you. Long story short is this. If you think about it, it's really important to think about the time here. In 2020, when this came out, so remember, there's an employee retention credit. It's out in 2020. COVID is hitting big, and as you guys know, in March and April, and starting to ramp up. And this was a credit that was in place for businesses that may have a revenue reduction based on COVID. okay? And this is where a lot of the misinformation is there. So that's part of it, because if you think about the time of it, and that's why I wanted to always talk through intent here. If you think about the time of it, is that there was so much unknown. What businesses would get decimated and hurt badly, right? What is that going to look like? And so Congress put this credit out there that said, okay, here's a credit against payroll taxes, employee retention credit. We're going to pay companies, right, in effect, because of the people they have on staff to offset some of that negative impact of COVID. And so it stayed that way. And as a matter of fact, but the thing is, if you took the PPP loans, you were not eligible a year ago for this credit. Really important. So if you think about self-censoring, I mentioned a few minutes ago, you have people that are like, oh wait, my revenue didn't go down 50%. I took PPP, I just can't do it. And so you put it from your mind. Well, they made significant changes over the last six months or so. By the end of 2020, right, in December, they said, no longer do you need to if you took PPP, you can still get this employee retention credit known as ERC. So it doesn't matter, you can take both, right? The other thing that happened in March of this year is they said, additionally, there are businesses that have not gone down in revenue. Some of them have even increased in revenue, but there were disruptions in their business due to COVID, and specifically due to government orders. All right, I'll talk a little bit more later about that, but there's 10,000 government orders at the federal, the state, county, city, municipality, et cetera, that have impacted businesses. And so they expanded this credit. They expanded it and then in March of this year, they expanded it for all of this year. And that's because, back to intent, March of 2020, who knows what's going to happen? By March of 2021, we know, okay, restaurants and health clubs and things like that got really hurt, right? And those type of businesses. But there's also money that's there for businesses that made it through and even found ways to make it through. Maybe they adapted certain techniques or had to move projects around. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So that's where this came from. So just know, and we'll go through some of these myths. So when you have, like, for example, we have an electrical contractor, and these are just some case studies, right? And some of these companies are pretty good size. Don't worry, we're trying to take, because this is a newer credit over the last 6 months, 8 months, et cetera. We're just trying to take, companies that we've done. So you've got, a good sized company here, 400 employees, but they had $1.6 million credit. Why? They had capacity restrictions. They had social distancing restrictions. They actually had, in this case, they had a closure of the office. They had the ports. So this was not a California company, but they had ports that had critical shortages of employees. There's also things at ports where there were social distancing requirements. So the throughput, if you will, at a port is much different. Why? Because in order to qualify for this credit, you can have a direct impact to your business, which is not that common. In this case, they had their office closed, but it's more about the indirect impact on the business or disruption of business due to a government order. In this case, they're suppliers. Like, I can go on story after story, but for sake of time, I hope you get the idea. And we'll go through. So what do we see here? We see myths out there. I said that at 10 minutes ago. What are we seeing here? My business was not shut down during the pandemic. That way I just don't qualify, right? And these are full or partial shutdowns. You could have a disruption in your business activity, right? You can have limited capacity to operate, people on site, people in truck, what have you. But a lot of what we see in contractors are vendor supply chain disruptions, right? Reduction in services offer, reduced hours, shutdown of select facilities you may be working on, suspension of employees. But for this sake of this conversation, we see a lot of vendor supply chain disruptions. Like we hear all the time, oh my goodness, in 35 years, I have never seen this and I've never seen that. We had a situation with a general contractor, the glazing company, right? They had to move projects around because their glazing company was delayed. Why was it delayed? As you dig into those 10,000 orders, it was delayed because that facility in that state and that City was required to shut down twice a day for cleaning, mandatory. It created a backlog. They could only, instead of 100% capacity and pumping out, they're in this case glazing, but in the case any manufacturer, they actually had a limited time that reduced capacity for output. So that's what we see. This is one we covered already, but we hear this a lot. I can't claim ERC if I've already claimed PPP. So again, not the case. You can the CAA, which is the Consolidated Appropriations Act, remove this limitation. Do you know, I haven't checked this in the last few days, but even the IRS website says if you claim PPP, you can't claim ERC. And that's a year, that's, well, not a year, 8 months ago that the law changed. So again, we've had owners on calls say, hey, I read, as I was preparing for this call, I read on this, and if you claim PPP, I can't do it. Not true. So my PPP loans were forgiven, so I can't be eligible. Again, along the same, PPP accounts for 2.5 times your monthly payroll expense, spreads out over 6 months. You guys know this. So the point is there are wages left over. Okay. It would be, even though it's technically possible, it'd be near impossible not to be able to claim both. And that's a shame. So many owners, again, are not claiming both because they think if I claim PPP, I'm not eligible. So another one, sales have rebounded for us in Q1. Hey, I'm a contractor. I'm an essential business. Nothing got shut down, right? It's, you know, and I didn't go down in revenue. So it's not only revenue that's in 2021, but we can also look at 2020. So you can look at 2020 and 2021. Now, if you think about this, you have thousands of dollars per employee opportunity, sometimes per year, as in 2020. For 2021, it's by quarter. So again, back to when I said, hey, this is not an exercise for $5,000 or $10,000. There's an opportunity to get thousands of dollars per employee per quarter, even. So what do we do? There's some complexity. You guys may have found that you know, a payroll company or some other service has reached out to you, maybe even claimed it through one of them. Even if you have, we have been able to maximize these credits. There's a lot of complexity of claiming. And what we've seen out there is that, again, I know I'm going to say it for the third or fourth time, is that we had a lot of companies self-censor, even payroll companies self-censor companies out because they did not have that revenue drop. And if nothing else that you take away from this 22 minutes at this point is that please know that you do not have to have a revenue drop to qualify. And in the contractor business, right, based on full or partial shutdowns due to government order, you don't have to have every project shut down. We should talk. Okay, there's an interplay with the PPP, as I mentioned. There might be other wage-based incentives you guys are claiming. And we would work on through all the full or partial suspension. That's the government order piece. We actually have 13 people that for 6 months or so have been piecing together these 10,000 government orders and understanding the reach and the magnitude of each order. And it's crazy. Like for any of you, if you guys are doing business in Pennsylvania only, you know, that's, I mean, we'll look at all the, you know, the state, the federal, the state, municipal, city. But if you are doing business in other states, there's so much interplay and it's interwoven in between these government orders, what superseded what and when, the timing of it, all that, that's what we have to put together, right? And again, the reason we do is because these are dollars. I can tell you, like, to give you an example, we had I'm just trying to think of a couple. We had a flooring contractor, right? That, you know, they have a very small operation. It's all custom flooring. You guys have probably experienced companies like this before. And they got a couple $100,000 in these credits. And the woman who owns the company there was a $280,000 laser machine that they just never bought. And they were able to not only buy that machine, but they were able to take on more people on the floor to not only work that machine, but the output became stronger as a company. So there's so many opportunities here. So here's a construction company, again, a good sized company, 184 employees, $1.2 million in credit for Q1. So in this case, they did have a revenue drop. So remember, there's, I should have explained this a few minutes ago. There are companies with revenue drops. So I want to be clear, and you guys may be one of them. So if you have a revenue drop, but you can also have quarters where there's no revenue drop versus 2019, and we have a government order. So there's interchangeable. Just because you have one or don't have a revenue drop in one quarter and everything else was fine, that doesn't preclude you from these exploring the other quarters. All right, so here's one. I mean, look, this company, good sized company again, but they get a massive credit, right? You have a 75 employee company. These guys dropped quarter by quarter. Now here's the other part. A lot of times businesses have said, oh my goodness, I'm still fine. My revenues relative to 2019 is about the same. But if you start piecing out and carving out the quarter by quarter, because you could take quarter by quarter, Q1 as an example of 2021 versus Q1 of 2019, right? And there's comparisons there to qualify. So, and then I wanted to go back, sorry, that was important. So I wanted to look at this here again. And I just wanted to, again, not to talk through and read this to you, but I think this is an important one, is that, again, here's one with capacity. I just want you to pay attention to what happened here. Capacity restrictions in the facilities they were going into, right? There were social distancing requirements, including honestly, with the contractors, the architects and engineers, when they had meetings, they weren't able to go all together anymore. We had another situation where a company was not able to go on site the same way, even in pickup trucks the same way. And then what happened is there was also projects, even if your revenue did not go down, there were also projects that were moved around, and people got creative in moving them around because of delays. Like I mentioned, that glazing company that delayed the general contractor, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot of that. Again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think the most important thing to know is that there's opportunities for companies with revenue drop quarter to quarter. There's opportunities with companies that have no revenue drop. These dollars can be very, very significant. And most importantly is we can help determine this with you, and part of our process with Jennifer, who's on the line as well, is that we have a brief call with you. Usually, I mean, we'll take as long as you need on the phone, usually in 5 or 10 minutes, quite frankly. We would get an understanding of what this could potentially look like for you, and be able to guide you in the right direction. Anything that we do on the front end like this is our due diligence. There's no cost to it. We just want to see if it's something you qualify for. If you do, we walk through, any related fees, how much time it's going to take. You want to know that, what the credit's going to look like. So we would be able to do all that. It's very fact specific. It's hard to just say, hey, here's your size company and here's the credit for you. That's actually impossible. But at the same time, we can give you that. So you have my, I do want to leave some time for any questions that you have, but you have my email address and my phone number. Probably email is best, if you can grab that. And I do want to thank KCA and John. I can stay. I definitely want to stay on the line if there's any questions. If you want to put in the chat box, you can certainly do that. I have a couple here right now. So another question is, if you have a supply chain disruption, do you only get credit if you paid employees that were not able to work? So great question. I have not heard that before. The answer is depends. There are some criteria where if you're over 100 employees or over 500 employees. So to the person that asked that question, that is not the case. The employees that were not able to work would only be the case if you're over 500 employees, as an example, in 2021. So anybody under 500 employees, I don't know if there's any. And now that said, if any of you on the line here are over 500, it doesn't preclude you from the credit, but under 500, you can. It's very strong, even stronger than over 500. Any other questions that I can answer for you, or anyone on the line? Again, you have my email address. We can certainly email me and we'll follow up from that. Again, I took a little longer than 20 minutes. I apologize, but we're really excited to be able to share this with you. Really excited for the opportunity this affords companies to take those dollars and invest them back in the business. Either hiring people, although I know you can never find enough good people, retaining people, bonusing people, attracting new talent to your company, or investing in equipment. That's what this is all about. That's what we are about as a firm. And John and KCA, thank you for the opportunity here to chat with you all for today.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on today, Brian. Any other questions? I just have a quick comment or two here. I don't know if you've talked to other Pennsylvania contractors or other associations, but we've had probably the goofiest laws during the pandemic. We had, your previous slide. What's that?
Yeah, Pennsylvania for sure.
Yeah. So your previous slide was talking about social distancing and number of workers on a job site. Our state government thought I don't know what they thought, but they had a restriction. If you were indoors in a project, you could only have so many workers. I think it was 4 workers per 2,000 square feet, and every 10,000 square feet you could add more workers, and it was just a total nightmare.
Yeah. So hey, look, listen. I know in Pennsylvania some of these things resonate more because, like, some states, right? Like for example, I work with former Governor Riley in Alabama. Alabama had none of that, right? So when you talk about like social distancing on job sites, it's like, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? We didn't have it. You guys, and then you had situations like there were other states too. We had situations where cities would come in and may have some type of order, and then the state would overrule it, and they go back and forth, and you have a week of this, 2 weeks of that, and adding. So, yeah, I mean, John, this is exactly why, like, specifically in Pennsylvania, I cannot emphasize that enough. You guys have a real opportunity here for dollars back in the business, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And beyond kind of the conflicting information from the IRS, where they post stuff that shouldn't be on there anymore. Are there any other big challenges like that you're seeing when talking to contractors?
No, nothing like on the out, but I mean, the biggest thing, I mean, John, what would you say? Would you say, generally speaking, if you go year to year, your contractors' revenue stayed about the same, or maybe went down a little bit? But like, for example, did most contractors in Pennsylvania have a 50% revenue reduction or 20%?
Probably the 20%, I would think.
So like there was 50% back in 2020. So the other part of it is, quite frankly, is there's some payroll companies that have come out and basically told other companies, hey, you don't qualify, right? You didn't have a 50% reduction, and they're still on the old law. So it's just like, and then the other part of it is, you don't want just a number, right? Let's say your credit's $300,000, $200,000. You don't want to just number. I mean, yeah, the credit is actually a number, but just having that number is not, I mean, you have to work through, like you just said, these social distancing requirements. By law, what we're doing, we're not just giving a number, here you go. We're walking through the impact of COVID on the business, the impact of COVID on the region and geography, the industry, the people, building out what government order affected this business specifically. So we have a report that's 125 pages that comes through, so that, back to our point about enforcement and our people on the legislative side, it's because we know this is how the IRS likes to see it. This is the intent of Congress, and we build it all out and present it.
Got it.
And by the way, we don't get paid till you guys get paid. So just in case that was ever wondering, anybody was wondering. So it's a really good situation that, it's a win.
Yeah. Well, very informative, and I hope the contractors on the line took away something good from this. And there's Brian's contact info on the last slide there, his email and phone number. Don't hesitate to call me too if I can help connect you with the Alliant Group, or if you have other issues, feel free to call me.
Perfect.
Good luck dealing with Pennsylvania. We were the only state that said our industry is non-essential except for healthcare projects. So,
right.
So for those government officials in Pennsylvania, we are essential. Our industry is essential. So
yeah, absolutely. Excellent.
Yeah, but on behalf of the Keystone Contractors Association, I'd like to thank you, Brian, for speaking today and spending the morning with us. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you. All right. Have a good day, everyone. All right. We'll see you.